Joining me now is Brendan Urick. He is the CEO of Electric Royalties. Good to see you, Brendan.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So we want to get a little table setter from you to start with, just for those who may not be that familiar with the story. You've got 70 plus assets across 9 clean energy metals. So can you tell us about the strategy and the benefits of the royalty model in clean energy?
Yeah, for sure. I think actually, our business plan is really starting to come to light here as you see a push for domestic sources of supply of these clean energy metals. And, with China restricting exports on, a number of clean energy metals, I think that's only going to increase as we move forward. And our plan always was to buy royalties on the best clean energy metals assets across all these 9 commodities we target, really in North America, Europe, and Australia. And that could actually fit to be a domestic source supply of these metals. So, we've been doing that now for about 5 years. This will be our 41st royalty. Actually, we just closed on that. That announcement came out after market close yesterday. And so, we're really excited. We see exponential growth forecasts for all the metal demands for across all these different metals. And we really see that over the next 2 decades. So, we've been playing this as a longer term opportunity, buying up royalties on these best in class assets. And we've done a pretty good job, I think, so far.
We want to get to the deal in Chile that was struck a while ago for $3.5 million of that royalty. But can you give us a brief synopsis of the one you just announced?
Yeah, so this was a key one. We've been working on this for a number of months now. We just announced definitive agreement about 2 weeks ago, and we just closed that yesterday. So hasn't really been in the market too long, but this will be immediate cash flow for us. They're targeting about 19 to 23 million pounds of copper production. And so that's going to be very meaningful. Anyone who wants to calculate exactly what that means for us, we are buying a 0.75% gross revenue royalty. And so you basically multiply production times, spot price of copper, times that percentage, and that would be, our expected cash flows. We have a mutually agreeable option on that as well, that we could actually double that royalty going into the new year. But we're really excited about it. They're backed by the Yorktown Group, which is a big private equity group. It's a producing copper gold mine. They've just ramping up into full production. But very excited about this. Something we've been working on for quite a while now, like I said.
And Brendan, just generally, what are the benefits of the royalty model in this particular area that you're dealing in?
Yeah, well, particularly important to me because as a CEO, I'm pretty much fully invested in my own company here, is diversification. So, we're diversified across 70 plus assets already, 9 different clean energy metals. And so that's a real big one for me. No one project or no one asset in our portfolio makes up more than 10% of the value to us. And so we are really well diversified at this stage. G&A is really low. Ours is about $1.5 million run rate. We have no mine operating costs when they're in production. We're not responsible for any of the development costs, the capital costs to get to production. And there's no holding costs on royalties. So, it's definitely just trying to build up a long-term sustainable cash flows that you really spread out over a very thin G&A. So it's a fantastic business model. We actually can tie those royalties to the property in a lot of cases. So it's kind of an extra layer of security that even if the operator, it doesn't work out for whatever reason, whoever takes that project forward is still going to have to honor and pay our royalties. So there's lots of different things that beneficial about that model, but definitely the best business model we have in mining.
Now, you've said, Brandon, that the company has multiple royalties on multiple projects that are either near entering or re-entering production over the next, say, 6 to 48 months. So could you update us on a few of those? I know some of the bigger ones in terms of cash flow expected are Battery Hill and Biscuit Creek.
Yeah, so we've got a ton of updates coming out over the next year. I think when you look forecast into 2025, it's definitely the most exciting year that we've had on the table. We look at this new royalty that we just closed on, the cash flows from that. We've got a property portfolio, about 28 properties that are optioned out to third parties. We're expecting option payments to come back to us through that this year. We've also got advanced royalty payments on Biscuit Creek that we're expecting. And then we have 4 more royalties in our portfolio that could either come back into production, 3 which could come back into production, have been in production previously, and 1 which should enter production for the first time. And so that would be our Middle Tennessee zinc royalty. Zinc prices are up, I think, 20-30% since then. Trafigura is the operator. We definitely expect that'll come back in. It's always been kind of a swing producer, but it's had a 50-year period production history. It's vertically integrated with the Clarksville smelters, only primary zinc producer in the U.S. So we hope that one will come back. That's, for sure. And then we have our Panuta Tin Mine royalty, which shut down in November 2023 over permitting. They're working through that and some financing issues right now, but tin prices are up about 50% since that happened. So, and it was Europe's only producing tin mine. So we're hopeful that something can be sorted out there. And then we also have our Graf Mata royalty, another royalty that was in production, stopped because of COVID restrictions in the country, Madagascar. It's our only royalty really outside of our target jurisdictions. But that would be a very good royalty, and they're operated for 20 months continuously. They've got all their offtake qualified, and they don't need a huge amount of capital to get back in production. And then we have our Oche lithium royalty, which is part of the North American Lithium Hub. Those guys are operated by Sayona Mining. It's just going through a big merger with Piedmont Lithium. I think that was just announced last couple of weeks. But they have a feasibility study on the North American Lithium Hub, which basically uses about 33% of the ore from Oche in its mine plan. And so that's already in production. And so we're expecting that, at some point in 2025, they should start to integrate that into operations. So, yeah, there's lots of different things. Battery Hill, like you mentioned, that one I talk about quite a bit. They're working on the PFS. That one alone is, we forecast 5 to 7 million a year. They had a 48-year mine life. And so, that's one of 41 of our royalties. So definitely, I think there's lots of good stuff coming. We have feasibility studies on Mont Saucier, Zonia, and Seymour Lake that could come out over the next 12 months as well. And so yeah, lots of reasons to be excited.
Right. Lots of irons in the fire, and potential for lots of news flow coming and heading into 25 for sure. Now, on the financial side, Brendan, Gleeson and Sons is a big supporter of the company. And I find it interesting that you've got this credit facility with them, and then on at least 2 occasions, in lieu of interest payments, they're buying shares in Electric Royalties. So, what kind of message do you think that sends to the market when you've got that kind of support? They want to maintain and if not increase their shareholder count.
Yeah, so a couple things about this facility. It really is one of a kind. In large part because Stefan is the largest shareholder in the company as well. He owns about 28%, alongside myself and my family, which are about 16%. He did recently convert all of the interest accrued to date on that facility into shares of Electric Royalties. And the nice thing is we actually don't owe any cash payments of any kind on either the interest or the principal for another 3 years or so. And so from time to time, he's allowed to convert that interest into shares of Electric Royalties. But at no time do we actually owe him cash on payments on those. And it's all convertible. All the principal is convertible into shares at a much higher share price. I think the lowest average price on that would be about 50 cents a share, going up to about 70 cents a share. And so we're hopeful at some point in the next couple of years that, we get to a point where that does convert. But there's also no early repayment fee. So, we could raise money in a better market, pay this back at no cost, no additional cost. And so, yeah, no, he's been very supportive. Like I said, he's our largest shareholder by far. He owns 28%. And it is really a one of a kind facility.
I'm curious, Brendan, about how you perceive the market's perception of Electric Royalties and its business model. Most investors will know about the Franco-Nevadas of the world and Wheaton Precious and what they do. Your model is somewhat different because of the areas you're operating in, clean energy metals. So what is your perception? And when you go around to conferences, for example, and meet with investors, what are they saying? What are their questions? And do you sometimes still have to educate people as to what you're up to?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were definitely the first group out there to get into clean energy metal royalties. And, we did the first graphite royalty financing ever done. Second and third tin royalty financings ever done. We're one of the few groups out there even interested in royalties on a lot of these different metals. So, yes, there's definitely an element of education. I mean, I think it's kind of hard to argue that there isn't some education that needs to be done given, our valuation where we, believe it should be. It's kind of hard to argue that there isn't, but definitely the metals part of it is a big part. We are making a more focused push into copper, zinc, and tin this year, which are a little bit more base metal, a bit more, well understood by the market. But yes, definitely an education piece. As far as the royalty perspective, I think, a lot of people out there understand it, but even every day that I'm living it, I appreciate more aspects of actually being a royalty company. And so I think there's some more education we could probably do on that, just trying to simplify, some of the upside that we get as a royalty company and what the long-term outlook is. But that's the plan for 2025. We're hoping that, our news kind of speaks for itself a little bit. This was a big thing for us. This helps get us cash flow positive. And so, yeah, I think next year we'll definitely hope to educate investors a little bit better on the value proposition that we have here.
All right. Lastly here, Brendan, can you sort of wrap it up with a bow by summarizing your thoughts? You've got this first mover advantage that you're speaking of. So what's the overall investment case that investors really need to know about as we move into 25?
Yeah, well, I think valuation, right? We're trading at near all-time lows right now. Market capitalization's around 20 million, give or take. And when you look at the portfolio that we have and we put together, I think it's an incredible buying opportunity for investors. So I definitely wouldn't sleep on us. We've been really busy. Like I said, we just had news. We closed the deal last night. We had an asset update this morning. We are definitely a news-generating company, and 2025 is shaping up to be the best year we've had yet. And, we're definitely going to be active and continue to grow. So stay tuned and definitely follow us.
All right, Brendan. Well, thank you very much for shedding some light on electric royalties, and we'll catch you down the road. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right, Brendan Urich, CEO of Electric Royalties. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.